Well, this is the new project, if you can call it new. It's actually been hanging around here for a while, but this is a Columbia disc graphophone, model AH, front mount, approximate date of production between 1902 and 1903, somewhere in there. This is actually one of the very first disc players, disc phonographs produced, right along with a few of Victor's. And they're very similar machines, actually, both in size and layout. Long, the front mounts. That just refers to the style of tone arms. Well, there is no tone arm. But basically, you have a long throat reproducer of this type that attaches directly to the horn with sort of a crane setup that supports the weight of the horn and keeps it off the record. And this is the mount. Attaches right here. And the crane goes like that. The reproducer would go here, but as you can see, we have a little problem. I have the missing piece that will be repaired, and this will be back in operation. Fairly simple. It's a little epoxy. We'll take care of that. Columbia does love their die-cast parts, and this is what this is, and that is why that is broken. But it's not in bad shape. The pot metal is actually pretty good. If that is pot metal, I'm pretty sure it is, because it kind of looks it, but it could also be aluminum. I'm not really sure. And there's nothing binding here. This usually tends to bind a little bit on the pin, but it's not. This is I was told, a one-family machine. This has never been stuffed in an attic somewhere and forgotten for 100 years and dragged out, dusted off, in the barn or whatever. It had pride of place in a home, and it broke, and the people that had it were unwilling at the time to get it fixed. They were older and seeking to downsize, so I ended up with the machine. You can see it's had work done over the years. I know somebody's worked on the motor's gov. It's a two-spring motor in here. The governor's been worked on. Someone changed all the weights and springs on that, used different ones, but I can put them back. Obviously, this is not original, but that's easily fixed. That's just felt, or can be replaced with the typical green Victor felt. The same thing goes right on there. It's quarter-sawn oak, solid oak case with the earlier models had all this fancy rope style trim on here and the fluted columns and all of this. Very, very ornate case. Now I've already rebuilt the reproducer. This actually used a Victor Exhibition mica here, diaphragm, exactly the same size. Victor Exhibition white tube gasket, same thing. Very, very easy to rebuild. It was no problem at all. And very simple. Very, very simple design, actually. I don't know how it sounds, but we'll find out. I imagine fidelity is not exactly huge, but none of these earlier players are. But this is original to the machine. The gaskets had actually entirely fallen out of that. And the diaphragm was badly cracked and really completely useless. But fortunately, the parts were the same. I don't know who copied who. Was it Victor copying? Well, I guess it would be Columbia copying Victor, because the Victor long throat came along first. I believe it was 1901. Well, Columbia started with the disc graphophones in 1902. They had a dizzying number of models, all different types and sizes, something for every pocketbook, alongside the cylinder machines. This is just the disc, graphophones. And like with Victor, where you have Victor calling their external horn machines as Victors, and while the internal horn machine were called Victrolas. With Columbia, you had the Graphnola. That was the internal horn machine. You saw me work on one of those in a previous video. While the graphophone was the external horn machine, which is what this is. And they continued to make external horn machines right up to 1922 sometime. Actually, that's not true. I'm not sure when they stopped making external horn or if they ever did. The company was only in this country till 1922. Then they were taken over by the British arm, and they're exclusively UK after that with a whole different product line. Then ended up absorbed, along with the gramophone company to form EMI. So I guess technically they're still around today, but they're obviously not making phonographs. And let's see. Let's take a look at it here. There's the mount. Decals on there, pretty good shape. And of course, Columbia was just kind of a holding company. This was really supposedly made by the American Graphophone Company. That was like the manufacturing arm, I guess. It's kind of a confusing setup with Columbia. Yeah, there was involvement with Edison earlier on and all kinds of stuff going on. But this is one of the very earliest of its type. It has, I believe I mentioned, it has a two-spring. It has a nice lid stay too, which I like. That's missing on the Graphonola I worked on the last time. And there's the motor. Lots of brass gears, same as the Graphonola. We have all kinds of brass gears. Let me see if I can get my light and put a little bit of light on that. And it is a bit noisy, just like the Graphonola, which I'm told is a pretty well standard Columbia thing. And several that I've heard online tended to have that voice going on. Okay. Of course, you see right here, that's a fiber gear. I understand that they are available for replacement, should it be needed, but this one is not in bad shape. It's not heavily greased either. There's a little bit of grease and some oil, kind of a little bit splattered on there. You shouldn't oil these. They're not supposed to be. The whole point of them is that they're silent gears. That's why they used fiber, although this motor is anything but silent. And it's best to maybe a little powdered graphite, or something like that. Don't slather grease on there because it could start breaking down that 130-year-old, gear, whatever it is, gear on there. Fiber, so you don't want to do that. I see pot metal here, right here on the disc that the fiber, that the friction leather rides on. Looks like a leather friction leather, and it's in good shape. And that is definitely not a brass disc on that governor. So we got to be careful with that. 2 spring barrels, 2 small springs, look like about 1-inch springs. This, let's see, we have the gear, the winding gear there, that is all brass. And it's not even worn. That's amazing. I've seen steel ones that are worn. And this is brass and it's not worn. Go figure. Anyway, that's brass. You got 1. I'm not sure that's a separate gear there, but we'll call that 2. 3. 4 down in there. 5 out here. 6, that little one, hiding. Can you see that down in there? 7 on the outside there. And then we have 8, 9. That's minimum. I think this gear here is steel. On the fiber gear, there's steel. But that's 9 brass gears on this. 9. Oh, joy. And they don't look like they're particularly worn. They look okay. I don't see anything really alarming there. Considering this machine was in one family for so long, you would think they'd show more wear, but maybe they just didn't play it a lot. I don't know. Obviously, that governor has been repaired at some point because the original weights are still here in the case. They're heavy die-cast weights, or possibly lead. I haven't really checked. There's the broken piece from the arm. I'm waiting on some special epoxy for that. Pretty good condition down in there. Nothing really alarming. No separation of joins or anything like that. This bed plate looks to be die-cast, or maybe it's steel. Don't really know. Well, we're going to find out. I take it all apart. The springs are noisy. They're clicking and banging and thumping around, which is typical. Let's see if we can get that to go. A little awkward here to do this with the lid up, but I want to show you the little gears going around. Let's see if we can get it started. Come on, I didn't really wind it enough, I don't think. Oh, there we go. You know what? Just reach around. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you can hear it now. Clicking and whirring. It's moving a little too fast. Let's slow it down. It's an odd speed control on this thing. And no turntable brake. I'll show you the speed control in a minute. Let's put the reproducer out of harm's way. That is the speed control. And I can see right away that that turntable is sitting a little higher than it should. Somebody has omitted the fiber washers. Why do people do that? The felt washers. If there's a washer there, there's a reason. If you take it out, put it back. But you can speed it up and slow it down and control the speed with this. Or stop it. That's your stop button right there. In and out. But everything's got to be taken apart, lubed. Really, really nice condition wood on this one. Nothing's all battered up. Really good. Little dust on there, that's normal. You know, you see that. And on the other side, we have... I'm not really sure the purpose of this. At first I thought somebody added that. But then I saw pictures of other ones, other AHs, and they all had this. So I guess if you needed to move the machine a little bit, you could do that, or possibly even carry it around. I don't really know. Not sure what the purpose of that was. Let's see. This is the crank. Almost like an Edison-style crank. Kind of looks like one from one of the Edison disc machines. And the crane. Not sure what the technical term for this is. I call it a crane because it sort of is one. There we go. It was upside down. This won't be playing today because I don't have the epoxy yet, but I'm working on that. And there we have the horn. Now the horn is not Columbia. This horn comes off of an unknown Victor front mount from probably approximately the same age. Don't know. Victor made a number of front mounts. This is probably one of the smaller ones, about the same size as this one. This is not the smallest Columbia, but it is definitely one of the earliest. And the horn's a very similar style, which is probably why it worked with this machine. It must have been working because they were using it this way. So, and it's a nice horn. Very nice condition. So it'll work just fine. Yeah, you can see how high that turntable's sitting. That's definitely got to, even with the crank, you can see it's a little high. That's got to drop almost 1/4 of an inch. Which is easy enough to do with enough felt washers in there, and I do have enough washers kicking around from other projects. Or I'll just make some. Either way, we'll get it set. I'm not even sure this uses felt washers. It might even use steel ones. Yeah, you see how they have that plate just mounted straight up. That can't be right. Now we'll figure it out. For some reason, they've disabled the little catch over there, too. I don't know why. Or maybe they haven't. Let's see. How does that work? Maybe it just turns? Does it lock in there? No, it doesn't. That's strange. Well, another repair needs to be done. Not a big deal. See, over here is very nice condition. But that's the AH. You know, your first look at it. And I also managed, yeah, the last video I talked about reproducers, Victor reproducers and whatnot. And we had that exhibition that I said I was going to redo. It had been done already. And I was going to go over it. Well, sure enough, I discovered one, that the gaskets were not cut quite long enough. There was a little bit of an air gap. And the diaphragm was touching the body of the reproducer. That's a big time no-no. Not good. So we had to do some adjusting, and the needle bar was a little bent. Not on the bar here. It was bent on the crossbar there. A lot of times I see it bent there too. It should be straight, just like you see it there, right where my finger is. If it's bowed in any way, then it's been damaged and it needs to be straightened. Otherwise, nothing's going to line up properly. You're going to end up trying to force. That was why this diaphragm was bashing into the body of the reproducer. It had done it enough to crack it in 2 places. I guess they tried to force it in there already on, and maybe they put it together before they lined everything up, and they put it in there, and it pushed it so hard against the reproducer body that it actually cracked. Shame, because it was probably new. It cost somebody probably $15. But I replaced it, and I properly spaced it, and we got everything straightened and lined up. The back gasket was good. It's a nice style. It's not one of Walt's, but it's soft. It's properly configured, so that's good. That I leave alone. Well, I took it off obviously, but put it back on there. And updated needle bar is on there too. That was this is one of the later ones. But there you go. So that's why I had to go through it. I just don't trust anybody's work anymore, to tell you the truth. This is why I got into doing my own phonograph work to start with. Because I sent out a reproducer, and it came back, and it just didn't seem right. When I checked it over, I later discovered it wasn't. It had some of the same similar problems to what this had. So I learned how to do it myself, and I never looked back after that. Yeah, I am more picky about how I do my own reproducers than anybody else is going to be. Except maybe Walt Summers or someone like that guy. I know he's picky too. He does all my orthophonics. I don't get involved with those because I do so few of them. It's not worth it to me to keep the little ball bearings and the tiny seals around. For the one I might do every 5 or 10 years, I don't need to worry about it. But with the exhibition number 2 and number 4, I do those myself for a good reason. Let me have those. You can see the similarity there between those two reproducers. Okay, there you go. It is the first look at the Columbia disc graphophone. Now, like I said, I'm only approximating the date on this. It's going to be 1902 or 1903 because it is the early style. I don't know. I have very little information on the Columbia machines. No books on them, nothing like that, because I really don't collect a lot of them. And all I really have been able to find out, this is the early model, probably 02 or 03, somewhere in there. Could be either or. Either way, it's very, very, very old, for a phonograph, and it's from the dawn of the era of recorded sound, mass-produced recorded sound. And it was probably hugely expensive when it was made. It's expensive now. Something like this is going to set you back quite a bit of change today. In 1902, this was all the money in the world. This or the Victor or any other one, because they were brand new. The newest thing, it's like one of those fancy new cell phones when they come out and they're like $2,000, whatever. These were probably, I'm going to guess, over $1,000 in today's money. Back then, would have had to have been somewhere around there, maybe more than that. Don't know. But I'm glad that they took care of it and they preserved it and they didn't allow it to become a giant mouse nest or, sit out under a drip in the attic or the barn roof or something like that. But this is how you want to find them, like this, in nice condition. And of course, that kind of storage would have destroyed all of the pot metal on this machine completely. That would be the end of it. The constant temperature changes, the heavy dampness, would have just ruined everything. And there we go. The disc graphophone.